The firework on his head. July 4th, 2024. At a neighborhood block party in Summerville, South Carolina, 41-year-old Alan Ray McGrew walked up and down a closed-off suburban street in a red, white, and blue Uncle Sam outfit. He had been drinking, laughing with neighbors, and hyping up the next round of fireworks as children waved sparklers and music thumped from portable speakers. Late in the evening, Alan picked up a large mortar-style firework, the kind that is meant to sit in a stable tube on the ground. Instead of doing that, he lifted it toward his head and joked that he was going to put on a show. His wife and others immediately told him to stop. They shouted across the street that it was dangerous, that it was not funny. He smiled, waved them off, and treated their concern like part of the spectacle. He lit the fuse and placed the device on his head. For a brief moment, the fuse hissed and nothing else happened. Then the mortar exploded directly against his skull. The blast echoed down the street, sending sparks and burning fragments into the night air. When the smoke cleared, Alan was lying in the road with catastrophic head injuries. Neighbors rushed forward, some frozen in shock, others dropping to their knees to start CPR until paramedics arrived. Emergency crews worked on him for almost an hour, but he was pronounced dead before midnight. Investigators ruled the case an accidental fireworks death. For his family, the story was not a meme or a punchline. It was a reminder that one reckless decision made in seconds in front of cheering onlookers can erase an entire future in the time it takes a single firework to ignite. The Shopping Trolley Joyride. November 10th, 2015. Just after midnight in Randwick, a suburb of Sydney, two 28-year-old friends from Sweden spotted a metal shopping trolley at the top of Coogee Bay Road. They had been out for the night and were walking home through the quiet streets when the idea hit them. Ride the trolley down the steep hill like a makeshift roller coaster. One man climbed into the basket, folding his legs and gripping the sides. The other balanced on the rear bar. With no helmets, no lights, and no way to steer or brake properly, they pushed off. Gravity did the rest. The trolley began to rattle and vibrate, the loose front wheels wobbling as it picked up speed on the long downhill run. Investigators later estimated that the cart reached speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour. At that velocity, every bump in the asphalt became a jolt. Near an intersection, a car driven by a local resident pulled into the road at normal speed. In the darkness and at that angle, the driver had almost no time to understand what was happening before the trolley slammed into his vehicle. The impact catapulted the man riding inside the cart several meters through the air. He hit the road with fatal force. His friend was thrown from the back and landed in the middle of the street with serious injuries. Residents rushed outside in pajamas to a scene of twisted metal, a stationary car, and two men on the ground. Despite attempts at first aid and rapid emergency response, one of the Swedes died at the scene. A stunt that had taken seconds to begin ended as a sentence in every news report. A shopping trolley is not a toy at highway speed. The rooftop pool dive, April 26, 1992. At a small apartment complex in Huntington Beach, California, 24-year-old Alan Jeffrey Jones had been drinking beer with friends for hours. They moved between an upstairs unit and the swimming pool below, talking, laughing, and letting the evening slide by in the hazy way only a long Sunday can. As the night wore on, Alan started eyeing the roofline above the water. The pool below was only about 10 by 30 feet, surrounded on all sides by a concrete deck. From the roof of the two-story building, the drop was roughly 9 meters. To his friends, the distance looked crazy. To Alan, flooded with alcohol and bravado, it looked like a challenge. He told his companions that he thought he could dive from the roof into the pool. They told him not to. Over and over, they said it was too far, too high, too dangerous. According to police, they repeated the same warning as he climbed out of the pool, walked up to the second-floor landing, and then disappeared onto the roof. A few moments later, he reappeared, silhouetted against the night sky, asked again if they thought he could make it, and then ran. Neighbors heard a rush of footsteps, a brief shout, and then a heavy impact that did not sound like water. Alan had misjudged the jump by less than a meter. Instead of the pool, his head and upper body smashed into the concrete deck beside it, before his body tumbled into the water. Friends pulled him out and started CPR as sirens approached. But the injuries were unsurvivable. The difference between "this will be hilarious" and "this will kill me" came down to a few feet of distance and a decision he could never take back. The car surfing crash. May 5th, 2023. On Quarry Drive in Douglas County, Colorado, a group of teenagers climbed into a car for what should have been an unremarkable nighttime drive. The road was in a residential area south of Lone Tree, lined with houses and parked vehicles, the kind of environment where you expect low speeds and routine trips. Inside the moving car, the mood shifted from bored to reckless. Some of the backseat passengers began crawling out through the windows, trying to ride on the outside of the vehicle while it was still in motion. Witnesses later described seeing teenagers hanging out of the rear windows, their bodies halfway outside as they clung to the frame. It matched a dangerous trend known as car surfing, where people ride on the exterior of a vehicle for the thrill and for videos. From the driver's seat, control slipped away. A car is designed to carry weight safely on the inside, not balanced on the windows and roof. With people leaning and pulling, every small steering correction became more unstable. At some point, the driver lost control completely. The vehicle veered offline, then rolled. The rollover was violent. Metal crumpled, glass shattered, and the teenagers who had been halfway outside were suddenly exposed to the full force of the crash. When the car came to rest, the quiet street was littered with debris and personal belongings. Neighbors ran outside to find injured teens on the ground and a mangled vehicle on its side. A 16-year-old boy who had been surfing suffered critical injuries and later died in hospital. The teenage driver was eventually charged with vehicular homicide. For everyone in that car, the trend stopped being a joke the moment the tires left the pavement. The Crocodile Dare, August 24, 2013. At the Mary River Wilderness Retreat in Australia's Northern Territory, friends gathered along a muddy riverbank to celebrate a 30th birthday. The Mary River is famous in the region for one thing above all else: saltwater crocodiles. Warning signs along the bank make it clear that people should not even approach the water's edge. Among the guests was 26-year-old Sean Cole, an IT worker from Darwin. As the afternoon party stretched on, there was music, drinking, and the relaxed atmosphere of a weekend spent far from the city. At some point, the conversation shifted to the river itself. Despite the signs and the locals' warnings, swimming across began to sound like a wild challenge rather than an obviously bad idea. Sean and a friend decided to do it. Witnesses later told reporters that he had accepted a dare to swim the river. Partygoers watched as the two men entered the water and began moving toward the far bank. For a short time, it looked almost ordinary, two small figures cutting slow paths through the muddy surface. Then someone saw movement downstream. A large saltwater crocodile, estimated at more than 4 meters long, surged toward Sean. In seconds, it closed the distance, lunged, and clamped its massive jaws around his chest. The party on the bank exploded into screaming and panic as the reptile rolled and dragged him under. Some witnesses later recalled seeing the crocodile swimming away with his body in its mouth. Police and wildlife rangers searched the river through the night. They recovered Sean's remains the next day and later shot and examined a large crocodile believed to be responsible. Officials repeated what the warning signs had been saying all along. In some environments, there is no such thing as a harmless dare. The river does not care whether you are sober, drunk, or laughing with friends. It only cares that something has entered the water. The Russian Roulette Game. December 1st, 2014. In a modest house near Columbus, Ohio, 18-year-old Rashawn McCrae sat at a kitchen table with friends. It was the kind of evening where people drifted between rooms, scrolling through their phones and talking about nothing important. Somewhere in the house there was a revolver. Eventually it ended up on the table in front of him. Rashawn picked up the weapon, opened the cylinder, and began to spin it. The idea was Russian roulette, a game that has been romanticized in movies but is brutally simple in real life. Load a single cartridge, spin the cylinder, close it, press the muzzle against your own head or body, and pull the trigger. The only question is whether the live round happens to be under the hammer. According to police reports later cited in local news, Rashawn asked a friend if he wanted to play. The friend said no and left the kitchen, apparently hoping that walking away would end the stunt. Moments later, he heard a single gunshot. When he ran back into the room, Rashawn was slumped over and bleeding, the revolver lying nearby. Paramedics rushed to the scene but could not save him. Investigators concluded that the death was the result of Russian roulette, not an intentional murder. There was no grand narrative, just an 18-year-old who treated a loaded gun like a toy, and a lethal game whose odds are always stacked against the person holding the trigger. In this case, the phrase, "it will not happen to me," turned out to be the most dangerous assumption of all. The Kevlar Helmet Game. August 17, 2025. In a quiet subdivision near Houston, Texas, two military veterans turned a living room into the setting for one of the most inexplicable hold my beer moments of recent years. 37-year-old Sean O'Donnell and 34-year-old Aaron Prout, a former Royal Marine from the United Kingdom, had access to a rifle and a pair of Kevlar helmets. They had also been drinking. According to investigators and the local sheriff, the men came up with a game. One would hold a helmet against his head while the other stood some distance away and fired the rifle at it. Then they would switch roles. The plan depended on the helmets stopping the bullets cleanly every time, as if ballistic gear could turn live gunfire into a party trick. At some point, it was Aaron's turn. He held the helmet near his head while his friend aimed and pulled the trigger. This time, the protection was not enough. Whether because of distance, angle, or simple physics, the bullet caused a devastating head wound. The initial emergency call described a possible suicide, but as detectives looked closer, the story shifted to something even more disturbing. Aaron was rushed to hospital but died from his injuries. Investigators pieced together the details of the helmet game through evidence and witness statements. Sean O'Donnell was arrested and charged with murder. The county sheriff later summed it up in a single sentence that circulated widely online. It was hard to believe two so-called friends would take turns shooting at each other inside a house. For everyone who read about it afterward, the story was less about dark humor and more about how confidence, alcohol, and firearms can combine into a form of Russian roulette that nobody walks away from.